Take the square root of both sides. When you square root something squared, what do you get? What's inside? You need to introduce plus or minus because you like baby pandas. And you need to think about that root of negative 20. Is it real or imaginary? I like to do this off to the side for kids. It's an imaginary positive root of 20. That is not simplified. You are right, Stephen. It's 2 root 5. Now, Stephen did that because he realized 20 is 4 times 5. And the root of 4 is what? 2. So 2i root 5. That's what it is. Plus or minus 2i roots of 5. One step and you're done. How do you finish isolating the x? Add 6. If you jump equal, you change its sign. And that goes before the plus or minus symbol. I still want to see both answers. One of them is 6 plus twice I roots of 5, and the other one is 6 minus twice I roots of 5. These are conjugates of each other, aren't they? Yes, that's the word conjugate. Imaginary answers happen in pairs, always, forever. All right, number 2 is a completely factor, and you're going to have more than one line here because it takes more than one line. I gave you the pattern. It's a special pattern called a dots, difference of 2 squares. What do you square to become, why does it say z to the 9th? Yes, it is. No. It's supposed to be z to the 8th. Hope I don't have to fix that on the quiz.
Z to the 8th?
Yeah, it's supposed to be z to the 8th. What do you have to square to become z to the 8th? Yeah. So z to the 8th is a z to the 4th that is squared. So what I learned here is I learned my a value. A is something you square, kids. B squared would have to be 81. So what does that make B? 9. All right. So let's write this out using this form over here. Initially, what we do is we'd say a minus b. We'd say z to the 4th minus 9 times z to the 4th plus 9. And there's no equal sign, so I ain't putting an equal sign down. I ain't trying to figure out what z is. I don't care what z is. That's step 1. Step 2 is to realize what still factors. Now, you guys have kind of sucked butt on the formula quizzes. Is there an a squared plus b squared on your formula quiz? I heard no with a question mark. I heard yes. No! There is no a squared plus b squared pattern. It doesn't exist. The pattern that exists is a squared minus b squared. Now, a squared must be z to the 4th. What does that make a? What do you square to become z to the 4th? Z to the 2nd. B squared must be 9. What does that make b? 3. This piece factors. That piece factors as z squared minus 3 and z squared plus 3. And this piece still exists. Z to the 4th plus 9. Now you might be tempted to try to factor z squared minus 3, but do you know the root of 3? No, you don't know it. You can't take it. It's a rational number. Not that it doesn't exist, it's just that it's ugly. That's that thing completely factored. There's no more factoring done with that thing, ever. All right, number 3, a quadratic has roots, which are also known as zeros, which are also known as x-intercepts, whatever you feel like calling them, okay? Of x equals 2 and x equals negative 6, assuming that a is 1, write the following forms of the quadratic. First step is to write it in factored form, and I gave you factored form. I even tell you what P and Q are. What are P and Q? The zeros, the roots, the x-intercepts, whatevs, okay? Now, you don't actually have to say the 1. You can put it down if you want. But it's x minus P, so x minus what? 2. No, there it is. And then x minus Q, so x minus what? Which becomes plus 6, doesn't it? We talked about this. If you enter or exit parentheses, what do you do to your sign? flip it. It's not rocket science. It's needed for rocket science, but it's not rocket science. That's easy. Everybody ought to get that. That's worth 5 points. Write in standard form. So all you got to do is ask yourself, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do with x minus 2 and x plus 6? You FOIL it. That's not a hard skill. So I'll draw the arrows here. There's an x squared plus 6x. Notice what I did. I distributed the x to both pieces. And then when I'm done distributing that x, what do I distribute next? The negative 2. It's the double distributive property. Minus 2x minus 12. Now, is that in STD form? No, you got to combine likes. 4x minus, I don't know, I wrote 16, minus 12. There, you got 10 points to that question, worth 15. Up next is write in vertex form. I've shown you a way of doing this in the past, and it's long, so I want to show this a different way. I don't know if you'll have more success with it or not, to be quite honest with you. I'll show you how I was taught. I was not taught through steps. I was taught to think. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave some space and talk about that minus 12. Now, you guys have done the completing the square stuff a couple of times. And when you complete the square, what do you take half of? You take half of 4, don't you? And you get a 2. What you do with that 2 is you square it. So I'm going to say plus 4 here. And it's not that these match. Don't think that it's because these match that I wrote plus 4. It's just because of what happened. But this piece right here actually factors as x plus 2 all squared, doesn't it? That was from completing the square. That was how it factored. Came from that. Now, here's the problem. If I write out x plus 2 times x plus 2, I get x squared plus 4x plus 4. Then I have this minus 12. Well, that's x squared plus 4x minus 8. Does that match the original equation? It doesn't match the original, does it? See, whatever you add in here, for balance purposes, you have to take away here. If you add 4 to the right-hand side, don't you have to take 4 away from it too to keep it the same? Yeah, but we're only balancing one side here, not both sides. So whatever you add in, you have to immediately take away. So I actually say minus 16. There's another way of doing that too. But that's how I was taught. I was taught to think about what it takes to make it a perfect square and then just take away whatever you add back in. Some kids will get that real quick and some won't. The other alternative way was to do x equals opposite b over twice a. Get off your phone. That would give you a negative 4 over 2 times a 1, which is a negative 2. Sorry. Yeah, because when you plug that in, it fixes itself. When you plug it in up here, doesn't it become positive? And then plug that negative 2 in. That'll create a 4. That'll create a negative 8. That's negative 4. And you'll get your negative 16. So if you just plug in your form up here, you'll have x minus a negative 2 squared minus 16, which is the same exact thing. So you can do it either way you want. You guys can go to lunch and we'll finish the last 3 when you get back, and then you'll take a little quiz. All right, 4, the formula for volume of a cone is given as volume is 1/3 pi r cubed. Solve the equation for the radius r. So you want to isolate this guy. That's all you want to do. You want to isolate r. We'll start by isolating r cubed. There are two things that are attached to r cubed through multiplication, aren't there? What two things are attached to r cubed through multiplication?
The 1/3.
1/3 and what? Pi, okay? So our first step is to divide out 1/3 pi. Now, this should really be cleaned up, okay? It really should be. And I know kids kind of stink at fractions, but what's understood to exist in front of that v? A 1. So you could say like 1 divided by, if you don't know what it is, 1 divided by 1/3, you'd get a 3. That's what you get, right? Say that you had like a 5/3 down here. You could take that 1, divide it by 5/3, and you get, after you convert back to a fraction, oh, I did times, didn't I? Should have got 3/5. 3/5. Yeah, it flips it. When you divide by a fraction, you flip the fraction. That's all you do. So I'll clean it up a little bit. R cubed is 3v over pi. I just kind of swap things around there. Now, what's the opposite of cubing? Cube rooting. You know, you've done that before.
Oh yeah, square root too.
Square root. Square root has understood 2. The cube root has a 3 of 3v over pi. There's nothing you can do with that. That's what the radius is. It's just isolation. All right, a student solves twice x plus 4 squared minus 6 equals 3 times x plus 8 by graphing. Like you took a practice benchmark yesterday and it even said a student does this by graphing. Didn't it? So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to solve it by graphing. You throw this in y1, you throw this in y2. So that's what I'll do. And you can play along or sit there and pretend you know what you're doing and take a quiz and realize that you don't know what you're doing. And you can fail a quiz. It's up to you. Twice x plus 4 all squared minus 6 into y1, 3 over x plus 8.
Oh, I know what you gotta do.
Anybody know what it is wrong? Yes. It is commandment number 9. 2 or more wrap. You're not dividing by one thing. How many things are you dividing by? 2. You had better wrap that in a set of parentheses or you will get it wrong every time. Every time. Not sometimes. Every time. All right. Zoom 6 it. You actually got lucky on this one. This was actually supposed to be the quiz. Oops. Whatever. I got them backwards. You got lucky on this one. You didn't have to search. On your quiz, you're going to have to look up. I can tell you that much. You won't see the intersection. There's only one on the intersection, one of them on the quiz. But you're going to do a second trace what?
Second trace
5. So this is what happens. This is why I don't like zooming in, Landon. There's too much stuff going on up here to stay zoomed in.
It's just hard to see your writing.
Then scoot closer. Yes. So this one has 2 answers. Your quiz only has 1. I'll tell you that right now. But I'm just going to get that little cursor close, then I'm going to press enter, enter, enter. So there's an answer. It's about negative 5.93. And there's another one on this one.
Would you put the second curve back on the parabola?
Huh?
The second curve, did you put it back on the parabola?
Once you get the cursor close once, you just press enter 3 times. You don't have to play with it. Like I'm going to go after the right one right now and watch what I'm going to do.
I messed up twice.
I'm going to get close. And then I'm going to press enter once, twice, thrice. Calculator will take care of the rest of it. Nearest 100, that one's negative 2.19. All right, 6 and 7. These are supposed to be gimme problems. I guess we'll see. The 4i needs to be distributed in, or you can actually combine like terms, because there's not 3 minus 2i here. There's actually 12i minus 8 what? I squared. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute this negative too. You're taking away two things, not both, so you got to change your signs. Now, that I squared, which this was a disaster on that formula quiz. Like, what's wrong with y'all? What's I squared worth? -1. Yeah, you screwed up that section. I remember yours. Yeah, you screwed up the I section. I keep trying to tell you guys, would you go to a doctor who doesn't have anything memorized or doesn't know what your condition is? Would you go to a mechanic with no tools? Like, Stephen, if you actually become a doctor and I see you and you are not a different person at that point in your life, I will go to the top floor. I will jump off that freaking building because it will be a less painful death than what you would cause me. Anyways, that negative 8i squared actually created what? Positive 8. That's an 8. So I'll combine likes. A plus bi, real plus imaginary. 8 and 10 makes 18. And the imaginary is 12i minus 4i, 8i. That's 18 plus 8i. 7 is supposed to be a gimme problem, mainly because I put this off to the side. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, you have two imaginary answers. If it's equal to 0, you have one real. And if it's greater than 0, you have two unique reals. All you got to do is plug into b squared minus 4ac and see what it says. So what is b? -12 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 15. And if you can't do the math, then you go to your calculator and you type it in. I'll be with you in a second, girls. And that says -36. So what kind of answers you got? You got two imaginary answers. Supposed to be a gimme? Should be a gimme.
Yeah.
Ready for them or for me?
No, for you. Somebody ordered one and they didn't want to come pick it up. And she said I can give it to somebody who wants one.
Oh, it's cookie. I was going to show you how it's cookie outside.
Hey, it's okay, we can eat cookie dough.
Yes.
You can. It's, it
You
doesn't have the eggs in it, so you can eat it raw.
It's really good. Yeah,
You just like could go wrong.
Thank you, girls.
I need paper. Yeah,
Oh my God.
All right, so here's your little quiz.
You can use that sheet to help. If you know some stuff's easy, do that first.
Like, don't waste a whole bunch of time on number 3, part 3. Just know you can't do it. Save it for last. Do the stuff you thought was easiest first. That make any sense? Should make sense. You guys don't have a whole lot of time, do you? You know what you're doing, it's plenty of time. You know what you're doing, it's 5 minutes first. But you got 20 minutes for 7 questions. Not 20, 18 minutes. Did I not record?